Revenue operations is much more than words in a job title. It's a methodology that is transforming sales, marketing, and customer success teams into high-performing revenue drivers. However, many revenue leaders still have critical questions about how to operationalize it. Furthermore, they want to know what others in the industry are doing. That's why we conducted original research and put together our findings in the 2021 Revenue Operations and Customer Acquisition Benchmark Report. In partnership with RevOps Squared, we asked hundreds of cross-departmental revenue leaders across top companies to reveal their approach to revenue planning, analytics and revenue operations, and customer acquisition. We've identified exactly how teams are aligning to hit their revenue targets, as well as the new activity, pipeline, and customer acquisition benchmarks to strive for in 2021 and beyond. Download the entire report for free at ringdna.com/RevOpsReport.
What if your sales team could know the moment a buyer arrives on your website and talk with them instantly? With Qualified's conversational sales and marketing platform purpose-built for Salesforce, that's all possible. It's not rocket science, it's common sense. Conversations move deals forward. Live chat, voice calls, and meeting bookers accelerate sales conversations without a single email exchange. Capture prospects in that magic moment when they're most interested in learning about your business. Head on over to qualified.com to chat with their team and learn more.
If you're going to be a good sales leader, you want people to want to work for themselves, not for you, right? Yes, you want them to run through brick walls for their manager because they know you got their back, right? And if you're treating them as a number or a metric, they're not going to feel that way. And so I am a firm subscriber to the belief that you have to empower people to figure it out. You got to tell them what to do, right? Not how to do it than what you're describing, which is follow this method, use this script, do that. Like that, all that does is it makes people feel like a robot.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Ian Koniak. Ian's the Strategic Account Director at Salesforce.com. Now, this is one of these conversations where beforehand I've prepared a ton of questions for my guest, as I always do. But in this case, we end up talking about none of those questions that I prepare. In this show, we were going to explore Ian's battle with mental health and addiction issues. And I promise, Ian will be back soon on the show to talk about this because that is an important topic. And we do want to make sure that we share that with you. However, in this instance, we got sidetracked, having fun talking about a ton of other sales topics, like how to sell big deals to big accounts. We also get into the Ian method of selling, self-named method of selling that Ian's developed, and I think you want to make sure you check that out as well. So all this and much, much more. But before we get to Ian, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing in the form of a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. All right, Ian, welcome to the show.
Great to see you again, Andy. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Good to see you as well. So tell us a little bit about what you do for people who maybe aren't familiar with you.
So I'm an account director for Salesforce. So what a director does is just what it sounds like. We direct within an account. So we've shifted. Salesforce has done a lot of acquisitions over the past 10 years, and we've acquired Tableau and MuleSoft and now Slack. And each of these groups has account executives and solutions engineers and customer success folks. Well, somebody's got to be the glue that makes sure all the teams are aligned centrally to support the customer's most strategic, ambitious goals. And that's what account directors do. We make sure we're responsible for driving ACV growth within our largest, most strategic accounts, mostly Fortune 2000 companies.
Across product lines now. So you're not just responsible for what's selling Salesforce, but you said Slack and Tableau and everything into that account.
Every product. So I'm quoted on all products across all our subsidiaries and the legacy products that Salesforce is known for, the core CRM stuff.
Huh. Interesting. So you've had quite a learning curve then, learning lots of new products.
Yeah. What's been great, Andy, is I've had, as we've acquired, so I came to the company 8 years ago, we were less than 10,000 employees. And now we're almost 60,000. We were less than 3 billion. Now we're I think going to be 25 billion this year. So I've seen 8x growth across the board, and we're just a different company. And I think what's been really great for me is I've had to learn how to focus on solving problems versus selling products. And it's because we have so many tools in our bag and so many products in our bag, I just simply can't be an expert. Tableau takes years to really master by itself, right? MuleSoft is an integration platform. That's a whole other set. So what I need to get really good at is having business conversations and connecting with senior executives, understanding where they want to go, what's stopping them from getting there, and then bringing in my team to make sure that we can help them with what they're trying to do. And it's been a blessing in disguise. The more products we've kind of grown, what I need to learn specifically, what I focus on is what problem does this product solve? How does it help our clients? And then I need to be listening and looking out for when and where the opportunities are to bring in my team and then stay out of their way and just make sure I'm holding them accountable. So they don't dotted line into me. So the Tableau rep doesn't report to me. They have their VP for Tableau. Same thing with MuleSoft. So you're really managing in a matrix environment.
Right.
So I work, for the core team, which is our enterprise sales team, and we really had to learn how to manage people that don't necessarily report to you and make sure you're
report
engaged.
To you at all. Not necessarily. It's not that they don't necessarily. They don't at all, right?
Yeah, but they do every week, right? So I run a team meeting where everyone's on, and if someone doesn't show up, I'm all over it, right? Because I need to know what's going on in the account. I need to make sure the deals are being executed and the customer is being supported the right way that my standards set for the account. So it's an interesting position for sure.
Now, do you have one account?
I have 2 accounts. And yeah, it started from, it's interesting because I started with 10 accounts, and this is, 8 years ago. And then I went to 5, then 4, then 3, and then 2 now. So every year, believe it or not, that they've taken away accounts, my quota's gotten a little bigger, and I've actually done better and better. So what I'm really focused on is getting to know these accounts really well, speaking their language, making sure that I'm walking the halls and I know the departments, the executives. It's a different type of role because frankly, you don't need a lot of accounts when you have a lot of products, right? You need to be able to have fewer accounts and less is more, right? Less accounts, fewer opportunities, less relationships, but bigger opportunities and with higher level executives. That's kind of where I focus. And it's been, fortunately, it's worked out well. Whereas a lot of AEs say, oh, you're taking away my accounts and no opportunity. I say, no, less is more. That means you can get deeper within these accounts. So I love it.
So how do you set the strategy for one of these big accounts? So, because who is setting it? Because there have to be a lot of different agendas, right? I mean, the Tableau person, the Slack person, the Salesforce legacy CRM person, whatever, right? Is how do you get everything in alignment?
Yeah, we have a rigorous account planning process that we go through. It takes probably the better part of the month, and we're just starting our fiscal year right now. So our fiscal goes from February to January. So we're in the early part of our first quarter now. And what I'm doing actively at this point is these account planning sessions. So the way that it looks in real time is that I'll read the 10K of Experian. I'll look at what's, their top focus in the news. I'll look at what their CEO is saying, and I'll distill that information and say, here's what they're trying to do, right? So I won't get too specific with my accounts and the specifics, there, but I have a large account that's public. So it's easy to access the information.
Right.
And, they're trying to shift from a legacy on-premise to a SaaS organization. And with that shift comes reorganization. With that shift comes a lot of standardization. The way they connect with their customers is changing because on-premise is kind of one-by-one installs, whereas SaaS is more multi-tenant. So I'm helping them accelerate that shift and accelerate time to value. So I'm saying, here's what this account's trying to do. They're trying to accelerate time to value and transition from legacy on-prem to SaaS for their services. And here's how we're going to support them, right? So It really does come down to a mix of strategic plus transactional. So I want to make sure we have enough opportunities to, for example, if a company owns our sales product, but they don't own our CPQ product and our configurator, I want to make sure the CPQ AE is going after that existing footprint to upsell and make sure they're using our Einstein and our sales CPQ and our marketing automation, our product, right? So I'm being very, I'm distilling both the strategy, but also identifying where the opportunities are within the existing footprint that we have, and telling these co-primes or specialists, as we call them, these sellers for the products, to go after those areas. So that's kind of what the account planning looks like. It's like, here's what we're trying to do to help them. And the ultimate North Star in an account director position, and I've done this a few times, is to put this client on a SELA, which is a Salesforce Enterprise License Agreement, where they get everything and they don't have to buy it one-off and piecemeal, but they have, Microsoft does the same thing. You'll see that, with a lot of the bigger AWS, et cetera, where we build up so much demand across so many products and services that we say, look, you can buy this one-off, you can buy this in individual transactions, or we can look at this holistically and put you on an enterprise agreement. So we're all kind of trying to work towards that enterprise agreement. But in reality, what it is a healthy mix of me having strategic conversations with their executives, understanding where they want to go, and pointing to the areas and the problems that they care most about, while making sure the individual AEs are tackling the low-hanging fruit, so we get that run rate business and we get all the white space that's unexplored, tackled in between, because you don't want to be elephant hunting, right? Because what if that elephant doesn't move? Then you're out of a job. So it's a healthy mix of both.
Well, and so the question I was going to ask though is so you've got 1-2 accounts, but let's say the Slack AE on your 1 or 2 accounts, are they only focused on those 1 or 2 accounts, or do they have 10 accounts?
If I do my job right, they are. But the reality is,
but what do they technically have, right?
Yeah, they have 10 accounts. Yeah, you're spot on, right? So the job that I have, I have a lot of jobs. I work for the customer first and foremost, but my job is to make sure I'm hogging my team's time, right? Because they could go elsewhere. They're going to go where they see the opportunity, right? These guys have a lot of accounts. They're going to chase opportunities. They're not going to chase strategy per se, right? So they're owning the individual opportunities. But the reality is that if you paint the picture and you tell them, here's the opportunities, here's how many users, here's the white space, and here's what I think the ACV is, they're going to go after that. The account directors aren't always doing that, right? They're not going there. They don't have the intimate knowledge. So the good account directors have the same accounts for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and they know where the bodies are buried, and they know the executives, and then they can direct the traffic, hence account director, to their account. Now, the other thing you have to do is you got to hold these folks accountable. So I have a weekly, love the team, but I have a weekly meeting where I'm saying, here's what I told you to go after, how are we progressing? And if they're not progressing, then I will make an intro. I will make sure they're progressing. And then if the deal's not going, I will make sure I'm injecting myself in the deal to make sure it's closing and that there's a real problem and there's a real timeline, a compelling event, and all the things that I make sure I do for my own deal that they're following. Because sometimes these reps aren't necessarily the best, right? And they need to be taught. So it's kind of a coach as well as a sales manager, as well as an AE in one role. Before I got to Salesforce, I led a 60 million ARR company. I had 80 employees. I had 10 sales managers and 70 reps in a company called Rico. So I have that kind of background of sales leadership, and it's really now coming full circle to help inspire people. And then once you tell them where to go and you hold them accountable, you stay out of their way. That's the key. Like a lot of these account directors are micromanagers and they're trying to be everywhere. That doesn't scale. So I try to just direct them and stay out of their way. And if they need help them, just like a VP of sales or a frontline sales manager should be doing.
Yeah. No, you've got elements of all those jobs in there. I know it's fascinating. It would be, sounds like an incredibly fun job to do.
It is. It is. It's incredibly difficult too. You've got to have a passion for it. You've got to really care about your customer, because if you only have one customer, you don't care about them, you're going to be in trouble. So the key is caring deeply about their success and then doing the right thing. We got a huge toolbox, right? I don't tell people, I just have a toolbox. I like have the whole Home Depot store, right? It's not just the software. We have services teams, we have architects, we have people that we can put on the ground to support them. So some clients might, I bet, be walking into a client with low adoption or problems where I'll put a transformation architect or change management or things that have nothing to do with software, but it's what the client needs. And I'll sell them that versus, selling the software where they can't necessarily deploy because they're not aligned or set up organizationally to use the software. So you have to know business really well, and you have to know your client really well, and then you have to know how to empower and bring in the right team members, because we are just a beast. We have such a machine of selling resources. Half the resources people don't even know about, right? So we have this transformation group that all they do is design thinking and help clients reimagine the future. So I like to bring that group in first to get clients excited about the vision, and then we can map back to the technology that supports that. And that's like people working for me, because these are all really smart people from McKinsey or Bain or consultants that come in pre-sales and really help the client have time and space to think about what they want and align together around a future state that potentially existed in silos before, where we get all these departments together. And that's where the big transformational deals actually occur.
Yeah, when I listen to you talk, though, is I stress that in my writings and work is that really there's four key factors that if you're a salesperson and you can master these, that you can do anything. First one is got to be able to connect, right? So there's connection, there's curiosity, there's understanding, and then taking those together and applying them in a business context, what I call acumen, applying your understanding in a business setting, which you just talked about. You can rule the world if you just focus on that.
Yeah, and then there's a couple underlying qualities which enable you to do those four things well, and that's you have to be smart. And I hate to say that, but you got to grasp the concepts and distill it to be able to speak the language that's not technical, but the business language.
Well,
and
that gets to the understanding part. Is you have to, and the curiosity is you have to keep asking questions till you do understand it, right? It's too often in sales, somebody hears something and writes down the answer. Okay, well, I asked that question, I got an answer. It's like, yeah, but do you really understand it? No, you don't.
Yeah, and I could not agree with you more. And in fact, I at the risk of appearing stupid, I say, pardon my ignorance, but I'm not sure I quite grasp that. Can you elaborate further? Can you elaborate further? Can you elaborate further? I always ask that, and they will tell you. And then it's really that active listening, right? It's like, are you trying to think of what you're going to say next, or are you actually listening and trying to understand before? My philosophy, Andy, and I've had this philosophy my whole career, and it's served me so well, is never sell anyone anything until you first determine whether or not you can help them, right? Yeah. So I won't pitch, I won't talk. I need to know what you're trying to do, and if I can help you, I'll get you. Now, the nice thing about having a big bag is 90% of the people we can talk to, that are willing, we can help. That's the cool thing, is we have a lot of tools. But the reality is that, you need to be really good in sales at understanding where clients are and where they want to go, and having to how to have that executive conversation that is not pitch related, but is just really discovery around what they want, why they're not getting it, what their biggest obstacles are, and what's in it for them personally and in their business, right? If you get good at that, it doesn't matter what you're selling, because you'll have that trust and rapport with this person saying, wow, you're different. You actually care about me and my business, because you're asking questions that aren't just about your product or tactical questions that, and that's frankly what I have to do in my job to be successful.
Well, I think that what you really highlight a couple things. One is, and I think that sellers overlook this, is that one of the prime sources of value they can bring to a prospect or a customer is to make them feel understood, right? It's the great frustration with sellers across the board, especially at the C-level, is, this person just didn't understand what we're talking about, or they didn't have the background. And to do what you did is, could you elaborate that? That's interesting. Tell me more about that, please. What else can you tell me about that? Is you start digging down until you're absolutely convinced you understand it. And then do it at two levels that you talked about, both at the personal level, at the company level. And this is something that sellers overlook that I think is just so critical, is that everybody operates on two levels, right? What's in it for the company? What's in it for me personally? And if you're talking to a stakeholder and you don't understand both those dimensions, you're missing out on something that's really critical.
You're absolutely right. And that's, one of the questions I like to ask, Andy, and I do a lot of the trainings inside of Salesforce and I do trainings outside of Salesforce. And one
On
of the
your
things
website, yes.
one of the things that I really think is important that people forget is why. Why is this important to you personally? Why is this important to you personally? And I'll share a quick story. My biggest deal I ever landed at Salesforce was with a company called Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And it was with the CEO of the company. And they were buying CRM for 50,000 agents.
Real estate agents, yeah.
Real estate agents, yeah. And I asked him, and he was really cared about this, and he really was getting deep in it. You don't see that usually from a CEO, right? They might pass it to a CIO. And I said, I got to ask you, like, you're pretty unique. Like, you're engaged. You really care about your people. Like, help me understand why this is so important to you. And he opens up and he talks about being raised by a single mom, and she wanted to be a great mom, but also had to work. And, the real estate industry gives people an opportunity for having a career and having a family and defining life on their terms. And these are entrepreneurs. And if we don't empower them to be successful through training and through tooling and through enablement, we are failing them. And I don't want to fail all the single moms out there that want to be successful and want to be there for the families. And that's why people go into real estate. And once he said that, everything changed. Everything changed for me because I just didn't think about him and I didn't even think about his company. I thought about the users and the people that were actually going to be impacted. And so it wasn't a sale to one company or, their employees. It was a sale to 50,000 families or single moms. It's like humanizing what you're selling. And it really just came from one simple question, which is why is this important to you? So you got to know what's in it for them, right?
Exactly. I mean, you were asking the key question, right? Again, I think it's overlooked so often. It's just, what's the most important thing to you, and how can I help you get that, right? I mean, if sellers just focused on that, right? Finding out what's the most important thing to you and truly understanding what that is, and how can I help you get that, you go a long way to putting yourself in the right position.
It sounds so easy, doesn't it? We're so inundated with how to sell. We're so worrying about like the tactic or the methodology. We forget like exactly what selling is. I think selling just has a bad rap. And if you think of selling as helping and helping others get what they want to give you what you want, I think it simplifies the whole industry, the whole profession.
Well, yeah, and you talk about this in one of your videos that I watched. That was a good video about your Ian method of selling.
That's right. That's right.
Love that one. It's named after yourself. I'll have to look at how I can do that for Andy. But and we'll get into that a little bit. But the message really is that I believe that sales managers are so focused on process and method do their people such a disservice, right? Is because they're not freeing them up, as you talked about. They're not getting out of their way to enable these people to give them some level of autonomy to experiment, right? To come up with the John method of selling, the Jennifer method of selling, the whatever, because that's what everybody has. And I get it. You want to train everybody on Sandler because we all speak the same sales language. Yeah, come on. Is the sales language is going to be that individual language, I think, of every person has their own strengths. And this is one of the things that I'm just curious to see what you see, because certainly in my experience and hundreds of conversations with people on this show and otherwise, is getting this real sense that too often now managers are just so focused on the metrics because they're available in a way they never were before. Is we've got so much more transparency, vision into what's happening, visibility into what's happening, is we're squelching that individuality.
Yeah, my first thought is I'm glad you're talking about this because no one is. I don't hear it that often. I hear all this method and tool and, this way to record and analyze and understand, and you have to follow this process. And what that does is it squashes the rep's freedom. You don't want, if you're going to be a good sales leader, you want people to want to work for themselves, not for you, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, you want them to run through brick walls for their manager because they know you got their back, right? And if you're treating them as a number or a metric, they're not going to feel that way. And so I am a firm subscriber to the belief that you have to empower people to figure it out. right? You got to tell them what to do, right? Not how to do it. So if you tell them, here's our standard for, how many opportunities you're going to need to be able to close this many deals per month based on our average selling price per deal, and your pipeline doesn't reflect that, and so you're going to need to focus. That's coaching. That's very different than what you're describing, which is follow this method, use this script, do that. Like that, all that does is it makes people feel like a robot. So I do agree with you 100% that the best sellers figure out their own way to get it done. Okay, no two people. We're all different. We're all unique. We all are in that, and that's what the Ian method is. This is not. I said it as a joke. I was half joking.
Well, I know you did, but it's the right point. Is I tell people, I said, at some point you need to write your own sales book. Now, I don't mean by that to go out and write a book. Please do if you want to. But in the sense of write down, as you've done, how I sell, right? Book of Ian. That's how Ian sells, right? And I think everybody needs to have that experience at some point of writing it down and saying, this is how I do it, or this is how I think I do it.
Yeah. And everyone that's really, really good, there's some commonality factors which you mention, but they all sell a little bit differently. I don't know anyone in the top, and these are people running 8-figure, 9-figure deals in some cases, massive accounts across the biggest companies in the world, and they're all doing it very, very differently. I don't know a single one of them that subscribes to, hey, I'm doing this Challenger, I'm doing this Sandler, I'm doing this. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel authentic when you're trying to memorize what to say next or how to position it. What really works is being yourself and caring about your clients. And that's, you got to shine. You got to be authentic. Authenticity matters in human connection, right? The reason you probably took my call before this podcast is because I saw an authentic post about you and being with your family, and that really resonated with me in terms of where I'm at in my career and what's important to me now. And I reached out authentically, and you took a meeting, which I'm sure you get a lot of people requesting meetings. But why'd you take it with me? It's because I was authentic and I cared about you, and I really appreciated what you put out on a post, right? So that's how I sell, right? It's literally looking at what people are posting online, what they're saying in interviews, researching the executive, taking things that are really relevant that I can help with or that I heard that resonate, and reaching out and saying, I like what you said about this. Here's where I think we might be able to help you in these areas. Would you be open to a conversation, right? And then obviously being persistent and following up, because executives are busy and you have to follow up a number of times. But that's not a script. That's not a method. That's just straight caring about somebody and spending the time to understand what's important to them and do your research. And I think that is what's not taught. And in fact, that's why I have my website and my training and my videos. So I'm trying to teach this way of selling where it doesn't feel so robotic and it doesn't feel so scripted, because I feel like young people especially are confused and they don't know what to do. And they're so set on like following these like ways of selling that they're forgetting like you got to be yourself, because that's what people buy from. People buy from who they like and trust. And that's what we're losing right now, that human connection. And we got to get it back, frankly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember getting an email from a client that said, look, we just spent X amount of dollars and 2 weeks getting trained by a sales training company whose name you would probably know. And they said, and here's the problem. We don't know how to sell. We just got through and we still don't know how to sell. And it's to your point precisely, right? I mean, the method and process laid out by this company, sure, they're worthwhile learning, right? They're good. But they don't teach you how to sell, what you do in the moment. They don't teach you how to connect with somebody. They don't teach you how to be curious. And so I'm always sort of amused is that, people think, we can just, let's bring in this big company and we'll train everybody. And it's like, and you wonder why you don't get an ROI on that training.
Andy, you're hitting a nerve right now that's really been bothering me for a while. And it's why I started my company, and it's why I am really focused on transforming. The sales training industry is broken, and it's for the reasons. There's two things that are broken about it. Number one is companies have their own enablement, which is very centralized around product and process, okay? Yes. not how to sell, but here's how we sell. We're going to follow this process and everyone's got to speak the same language. And it's not focused on the soft skills, the human skills. There's nothing in there. It's always about like this methodology or this. And then the second thing that's broken is these outside companies come in and they come in for a day or 2 days or maybe a week if you're lucky. And then they disappear and there's no follow-up and there's no reinforcement. And that's not how people learn, right? People learn through ongoing reinforcement. You can't just go to a course for a day and think you're going to transform what you've done your whole life for 20 years and magically. Maybe you'll get a couple pointers that you can write down. Maybe you use them, maybe you don't. But 99% of the time, you set it and forget it, right? You set it down right then and there. The next day, you're back to what you were doing before and you just wasted a ton of time and money. So my goal long-term, I'm at Salesforce now, but my long-term goal is to really take this enablement model and put it more on how to sell and also infuse coaching and personal development with the soft skills as well as some of the more hard skills which are needed for sales, and have like follow-up coaching and follow-up lessons and have people that can reinforce it, because that's people pay for application, not information. You can get information for free. I can go on your podcast and probably learn more than I can learn with any of these training companies just listening to you going for a run, right? I can go on YouTube. I can go anywhere and find information. But how to apply it is a day-to-day thing. It's a weekly thing. And you need it starts with the frontline sales manager. You need a good sales manager who is actually teaching how to sell and showing and leading by example and rolling up their sleeves and doing it with the AEs. And that's what's missing a lot of times. These armchair managers that are looking at reports. So
let's tackle that issue, because I'm on record saying on this program multiple occasions is that we spend $20 billion a year in the United States on sales training, of which maybe spend 10% of that on training frontline managers. What if we flipped that and we spent 90% of that $20 billion on training frontline managers and only the other 10% on training sellers? Wouldn't we be better off?
100%, because managers get promoted by being good AEs. They were never managers. They were never leaders, right? And so you take the top AE and make them a manager. What do? They beat up their team because they expect their team to be like them and to know what they know. And it just doesn't work, right? Maybe they're the top 5%, and that's why they got the promotion. But the reality is there's a whole set of skills that's related to inspiring people and coaching them. And most managers are not coaches. If you got frankly, a good manager is a mix. It's a mix of coach and knows a seller who can go in and actually get deals done. And I've had the privilege of working for an amazing manager, and he's been promoted now multiple times, an amazing leader that both knows how to sell. But the best managers stay out of their way, right? They let the AEs do what they do, and they come in to help when they need to. So it's you got to know when to like back off. That's a skill too, because you don't want to be a micromanager. Right. Everyone hates a micromanager, and there's far too many out there. So I agree with you.
The question is, how do we enable the managers to feel confident to back off? And I think this is the issue, is that sales managers operate from a perspective of fear. And especially the frontline sales managers, right? And this is why they gravitate to the metrics, especially when they have less sales experience, is because that's tangible. I can look at that and I can sort of manipulate that, but I don't know how to, I don't want to say manipulate, but we'll use the word manipulate the individual, right? To help them. And so to me, this is what I see is this overwhelming amount of fear among frontline managers that they really don't know what they're doing. We have not enabled them. It's not their fault. We have not enabled them. And so they default to the thing that's sort of they do understand, which is the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Yeah. If you figured out, let me know. I think it has to do with the individual. It has to do with the type of people that you're promoting to managers, right? Looking at people that are servant oriented, that want the top managers know that their team success is their own success. And it's a tough one, but I do think the metrics matter. I do think looking at pipeline and knowing when to coach and how, but you don't want to overlook at the metrics, right? It's really simple. And again, I can't, it's been a while since I've had a frontline sales team, but when I did, I had every rep over plan, and I had nine reps on my team. And the key was, for me, making sure everyone knew what they were supposed to do on a daily basis, holding them accountable to do it, and then going in and showing them how to sell with them. And the ones that learned and could pick it up, I kind of backed off, right? And then I went into bigger deals with them. The ones that didn't, probably long-term weren't a fit, right? So it really does have to do with, you have to be a good teacher to be a good leader. And a good frontline sales leader, you're not just doing it for them. You're kind of teaching them along the way, and you're gradually backing off and watching them to see if they're getting it. I guess is the easiest way to explain it.
Well, and you're interested in your opinion on this. So what if, and this is something I've been talking about for a while, is so let's take an example from professional sports. And because professional sports, certainly I'm a huge soccer fan. This is a performance-oriented profession, right? Just like most professional sports are, not too dissimilar from sales, right? But they have become very specialized and very advanced in their use of analytics. Now we're starting to do more of that in sales, but also in the use of specialized coaches. You look at the coaching staff of any Premier League soccer team, and there's a laundry list of coaches. My example is, my club, Liverpool, has a coach just for throw-ins, right? That's specialty. So why aren't we gravitating towards more of that type of model in sales, where we have people that are very specialized coaches for specialized functions that can actually, instead of them putting all this responsibility on the managers, expecting them to be experts on all of that, which is just unrealistic, and I think it doesn't happen because, quite honestly, people at the top don't want to invest that much in sales. But I think the return would be pretty worthwhile if we start taking more of that approach.
Yeah. I have a buddy who has a life coaching business, and he took that life coaching now, and they're selling to companies the having a frontline life coach available for the sales teams.
Right.
And I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. And it's called Life Guides. And this guy gets it, right? You have to take what people are good at and let them do what they're good at. Not everyone's a Swiss Army knife where they're good at everything, right? And so I think it would make a lot of sense. And Salesforce is starting to do this now, and it's nice, it's refreshing, but it's hitting the leaders, right? The RVPs and the AVPs are getting these coaches that are helping them with not just like sales specific metrics, which they know pretty well, but how to lead, how to make sure they have the right habits and behaviors, and understanding what their goals are, and that they're doing the things that advance their goals, because that's a whole different, that's a whole different muscle. And I have a new RVP right now. She just joined the team, and it said on her profile, it's an internal coach. I'm like, what is that? So she actually got certified by the ICF, and she's a certified coach. I'm like, that is awesome. Like, that is a skill, right? So she took the time to get a skill there. And we have this like internal coaching program at Salesforce, but you're right. Most sales leaders that I've worked for aren't great coaches, right? But you still need to know some basic things, which is how to sell and how to basically lead without, I happen to not be an analytics guy. I don't get caught in the data and the metrics. It's not that interesting to me. I like the people and the connecting piece of selling. So for me, I'd much rather have a one-on-one and write nothing down and just chat like we're doing right now, Andy. So it comes natural to me versus digging into dashboards and drilling and trying to find the hidden data. But there are people that can do that. So we have a group that specifically is a strategy group that tells the sales RVPs, and Salesforce has deep pockets, so we can invest in this, but they're a data science group that just tells the RVPs, hey, based on how this company is using the data, you might want to go after these areas, right? So that is something previously the RVPs would have to do, or the AEs would have to do, and most wouldn't even do it. So it's like we're bringing opportunities now to the AEs to go out. AEs should be focused on meeting with customers and selling, and what I call RGAs, revenue generating activities. So that's basically setting meetings, preparing for those meetings, doing those meetings, or following up on those meetings. And those four...
Solving problems, identifying and solving problems.
That's right. Being with customers, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Spend your time in front of customers, not digging into dashboards and internal stuff. It's the same thing with RVPs and frontline sales managers. They should be spending time coaching their AEs, right? Making sure their AEs know what to do and helping, and they should be out in the field with strategic, larger customers and deals, coaching and watching and leading by example. And if everything else is helping with them, and you have resources to help with the other things, then they're going to be freed up, and that's going to drive a lot of revenue. So I think there'll be huge returns there.
Yeah, and I think this being able to walk the walk and talk the talk is a big issue. I see in companies where you get people in executive levels that are more in sales that are maybe good at hiring and building a team. I call them orchestrators, but they're not operators, right? They're not comfortable in front of the customers. And I think companies really need to have somebody that's a blend, as you said, of both.
Yeah. And I think, I've been in sales for 18 years, and I started up and down the street with selling copiers, and we didn't have all the technology. We didn't have the analytics. It was an advantage. I was just literally thrown out of the office.
I wasn't copiers, but I was in Oakland, and I'd drive to Hayward and Union City, and I'd park in a business park, and I was selling computers, but walk all day making calls.
Up and down an office building, knocking on doors, right? And what does that do?
We fought for the high rises. There's very few high rises at that time in Oakland, so you wanted a high rise. That was great.
I had Santa Monica and I had Koreatown, and there were a lot of high rises. Yeah. And I used to have a method, because I would have security guards basically get called and say there's someone soliciting here. So I would go to the 10th floor, and then the 2nd, and then the 9th, and the 3rd, so I could stay ahead so they couldn't see where I was. I had to do a science. But the advantage was you learn to sell. And you learn to sell without relying on a script or a method or a technology or a process. You're just it's very simple. Activity yields pipeline, yields results. And it was a science of selling. If you hit the right number of people, you are inevitably, even if you're bad, you're going to find some opportunities, especially in copiers where there's leases that are coming up. You're going to find, and then I just bring my manager. I brought my manager. We'd have a ride day once a week, and he'd come out and he'd show me how to do selling. And that was how I learned. That's how I cut my teeth selling copiers, is, just setting a lot of appointments, bringing in my manager. And that manager, Tim Harris, I'm still grateful to him to this day, showed me how to close deals. And then it was like I picked it up, and, the rest is history.
Yeah, well, back in October on this show, I had my first manager ever on the show as my guest. So, telling stories about me. But yeah,
wow,
you're absolutely
that's
right.
Really cool.
Yeah, he went on, had a very successful career, but to a point you were bringing before is, you talked about, your little equation. Everybody's got their number, and this is the thing is, but what sort of drives me nuts is, back to a topic we were talking about early in the show, is that now everybody wants to make sure everybody has the same number, right? So like pipeline coverage ratios that you see, especially in a lot of SaaS companies, it's like, not everybody needs 5X, right? Mm-hmm. And when you force people to do that, you start developing bad sales behaviors. And that's, in my mind, that ultimately leads to low win rates. But
it's funny that you mentioned the 5X thing, because I talk about this a lot, right? And this again, I did a little talk called The Science of Selling, which is, just the numbers specifically. Mm-hmm. And this is what I did at Rico. And again, I moved to be an IC for a reason. I've been there for a reason, because I control my own destiny. But for a while, I was scaling and building out these teams, and we started with 7 and grew it to I was 70 reps when I left. And the thing that I would teach people is really simple, and it was if you do 100 cold calls a week, okay, you will set 10 appointments a week. It's about a 10%. These were in-person cold calls and follow-ups. If you set 10 appointments a week, that means you're always doing appointments a week. So our simple formula is do 2 and set 2 every day. Do 2 appointments, set 2 appointments every day. If you do 10 a week, you're going to find 4 opportunities, okay? 4 people that want to see a proposal. Out of those 4, if you're terrible, you'll close 25% of the deals, okay? And that means you'll close 4 deals a month, and our average deal size is about 10K, and we will hit 40K, and your quota's 30, and you'll be off to the races. And the people who did it all hit their number. And we infused a ride day in there so the manager can show them how to sell. So we had this process down. Well, what ended up happening, what I told everyone is, it's not going to be 16 opportunities equals 4 closed deals. What it's going to be is it's going to be 16 opportunities equals 8 closed deals, because you're going to get better at closing and objection handling and moving it forward. And then, by the way, now the opportunities are going to get larger. So you're not going to need 16. You're going to need 5. And now it's literally to the point where at Salesforce, like my win ratio is probably 75%. When I'm running charge, when I'm bringing my team, right, I just need a few deals, but I need the right deals with the right problems, the right executives. And then I don't need to go grind it out. And that's what people do. They're grinding and they're trying to hit these metrics that are based on, frankly, just garbage. And then, you're right. They're making up stuff and they're discouraged. And more importantly, they're setting themselves up for burnout. And that's not a sustainable career, right?
Not at all.
That's not how it works. Like, that's why I have 1, 2 accounts, and it's great. It's like I can just focus on them. And
you have that, but even in the early part of my career maybe I was crazy at the time, but we had the same methods, processes laid out. Make X number of calls, yada yada yada. That just didn't seem like the way I wanted to do it, right? So I made a lot of calls the first year or so, and then once I got promoted to bigger stuff, what I did is I said, what I'm going to do a little differently is I would send out 10, 15, I'm going to date myself horribly here, but postcards to prospects in the territory. And every Wednesday afternoon, I had a standing seminar I'd host in my branch office, where we'd go through a demonstration of the system we were selling. And just through that, I wasn't making 100 calls. I sent out 15 postcards, but I was following up. I'm a huge follow-up fanatic. I'd follow up fanatic, get high yield. I'd get 3 to 4 people in a week. I had a huge pipeline, very healthy.
I'm really enjoying the conversation, because it goes back to what we said earlier, is like, you got to let reps figure out what works for them. And
exactly.
Again, giving the metrics of what the numbers are and what you need in your pipeline is absolutely something everybody should do. Now, what you shouldn't do.
But I knew my numbers. They just weren't everybody else's numbers, right? And that's fine.
That's right. That's right. So what I tell sales leaders that ask me, and when I interact with them, is do not track number of cold calls. That is the worst metrics, right? What you want to look at is how many people are you meeting with, like appointments that you've had, and of those, what percentage turn into opportunities, and of your existing pipeline, what percentage close. So your ratios, we want to work the ratios that are unique to you. I don't care how you get the appointments. You can go to a trade show, you can send out postcards, you can do LinkedIn videos. In my coaching business, I get all my clients from LinkedIn videos. There is no funnel. There is no prospecting. There are no leads coming. I do a video and people say, I want help. This really resonated. Isn't great. Well, I'm doing this side little coaching thing. Anyway, it's different for everybody, right? The top salespeople are not doing prospecting in the ways that, people tell them to, which is just dial and, email.
No,
they're spending,
rule breakers. That's what
exactly.
I say is, the common thing among all, and I don't really like the word top performers, but people that are succeeding on a consistent basis is, they're rule breakers, fundamentally rule breakers. They do their own thing.
Exactly. And I just have seen that over and over again, but they all care, like they're self-motivated. If you know someone is self-motivated, and if I didn't think we were going to talk about sales management, but I love it. It's fun for me because I've seen both sides. I've seen terrible managers, but if you know someone wants to be successful for their own self, you don't have to track what they're doing. Assume they're going to be working, right? And if there's a problem, you'll know it. You'll see it with the pipeline. You'll see it with the forecast. And then you can coach them and figure out what they need to do and help them and, guide them, right? But when the problem is they're not working, it will be evident by the numbers. But if the problem is that they're not good closers, you can work on that. If the problem is that when they meet with people, it doesn't convert to the opportunity, or their deals are stalled and they're not advancing, you can work on that, right? But the fundamental job of a sales leader is to help advance and develop their people. And you don't do that if you're treating everyone the same. You just don't. So I always try and start with understanding where people want to go, what's important to them personally, what their income goals are, and then working with them on a plan to help them achieve those goals. And you just start there and then hold people to accountable to what they want anyway, right? Then it becomes a coaching relationship.
Yeah, I've help simplify this for people, and you've figured it out, but for people who haven't figured it out is if you remember earlier in the conversation I said, if we boil it down selling to what really selling is about, it's talking to a buyer, listening and understanding, truly understanding what's most important to them, and then helping them get that. And what are you trying to do when you're coaching and managing an employee? You're finding out what's most and really understanding what's most important to them, and then helping them to get that. I mean, it's basically the same motion. Whether you're doing it with a customer or you're doing it with somebody you're coaching, you're trying to achieve the same thing. How do I understand what's most important to them? How do I help them achieve it?
Yeah, it's not just sales, it's life, right? It's like being interested in what people want, and that's it. Just how you interact with people. I don't.
Well, interested, authentic, right?
That's right.
Identify need, what's most important to them. By the way, that was the short summary of the Ian method of selling. So
yeah, it's exactly right. Be interested, not interesting. Don't talk about yourself, talk about them, and dig deep. Authentic is show up as you. Don't show up as who you think you should be, but show up as your true self. And the people that you gravitate towards naturally will gravitate back. And you don't have to put on a mask because you think that's what salespeople do.
And to that point, right? As I tell people all the time, I said, what's the one question a customer will never ask you? Any idea? One question a customer will never ask you.
Gosh, what would they never ask you? There's a lot. I mean, it might be personal, like it might be, I'm thinking of politically incorrect questions or something like that they wouldn't go.
I've heard all those. One question that they'll never ask you is, hey, Andy, could you be more salesy? Customer will never ask you. So it's to your point about showing up, putting on a mask, thinking you need to play this role. No, they don't want you to play the role. They want you to be you.
What? Quite interestingly, I've had a lot of customers when I get close with them and I start to be salesy and I start to pitch, like they'll say, can you be less salesy? And they'll tell me, and that's how you have a good relationship. They're like, you don't want to be selling here. You want to show up as someone it's a trusted advisor versus a salesperson, right? That's the truth. Like it's about adding value. It's about listening. I say sales, you're a vessel. You work for the customer. You're a vessel to connect them with whatever they're trying to do through the vehicle of your products and services. You're just that vessel that kind of moves things back and forth and connects them and helps them get what they want. You don't even exist as an individual. It's like you are there for them and your individuality will shine. It's not about you per se is what I'm trying to say. It's like they don't care about you. You will get to know them through the process. They care about themselves. And so you got to just get them opening up and then they start to care about you. So it's like reverse of what you think you have to be interested in them. You don't. You just need to be interested in them and be yourself. 100%.
All right, we could go on forever, but we're running out of time. So, and we didn't really even cover a lot of what I wanted to talk to you about. So we're going to have you back, and we'll do that again. But for people who want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, maybe on your side hustle, how can they do that?
Yeah, there's 3 channels, that they can find me. I think number 1 is LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. And it's just Ian Koniak on LinkedIn. Every week I try and do a post. I'll do a video on sales training, sales enablement, personal development, anything really geared towards helping people advance their potential. So just follow me on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM if you like the podcast. If you want to see all my previous videos, they're all posted on my YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/Ian Koniak. And then if you want to learn more about coaching or just what I offer and kind of my own service, in terms of helping individuals kind of go from good to great. I have a website, iankoniak.com. I will say I'm a full-time employee at Salesforce, and I take very, very limited, clients as a side hustle. And the wait list right now is about 50 people. So if I don't get back to you, don't get upset, but put yourself on the wait list. Eventually, like I said, I'd love to do this full time. I'd love to make a career of it. And, I'm right now just kind of building up the brand, building up the audience. So I appreciate if you got any value, just let me know. That's what makes me happy is hearing people and what they've taken away. So best place is LinkedIn to start.
Well, perfect. All right. Well, Ian, what's that? Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll do it again.
Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate it.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm ever so grateful for your support of this program. And I want to thank my guest, Ian Koniak, for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could also leave us a rating or a review and let us know how we're doing, we'd certainly appreciate it. And you can do all that on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this episode is over. So thank you for your help. And as always, thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Hi, friends. I have something really exciting to share with you. We're launching a new podcast called the RevOps Podcast as part of the Ring DNA podcast family. Today's leading B2B companies are embracing revenue operations as the answer to misaligned people, processes, and data that lead to recurring sales inefficiencies. However, many people still have critical questions about RevOps. What processes and tools do I need? How do I structure my team? How do I measure outcomes across sales, marketing, and customer success? And what are the best practices for doing that? So join Jordan Henderson, Jonathan Stevens, and Brandon Redlinger, and some of the world's leading revenue operations leaders as they tackle the important questions many of you face today when building a RevOps function. From Ring DNA, the company that transforms sales teams into high-performing revenue drivers, comes a podcast guaranteed to go beneath the surface-level conversations and dive deep into the world of RevOps. Your hosts deliver unfiltered, thought-provoking discussions and actionable takeaways on every episode about the ideas, processes, and technology changing the B2B sales landscape. Visit ringdna.com/RevOps to learn more or subscribe now on your favorite podcast player. What if your sales team could know the moment a buyer arrives on your website and talk with them instantly? With Qualified's conversational sales and marketing platform purpose-built for Salesforce, that's all possible. It's not rocket science, it's common sense. Conversations move deals forward. Live chat, voice calls, and meeting bookers accelerate sales conversations without a single email exchange. Capture prospects in that magic moment when they're most interested in learning about your business. Head on over to qualified.com to chat with their team and learn more.